Okay, talking about the red zinger. And I don't know how many kids were showed up in that pack. I mean, it was maybe like 30 or something, or 25. So I was doing pretty well. Like I was ahead of a bunch of kids, or a few kids. So that was cool. But I remember there were two kids who were in last place who were like, and I think they were together, and they were like, you know, and they'd get lapped and stuff. It was some like weird looking skinny kid with like a crappy bike, just like a weird goofy looking kid with long hair, and then this fat kid. And the fat kid was Ryan Gear, who I ended up going to 6th grade with. Or maybe he wasn't in my, I think he was in the other grade. But we shared a choir class. Because I remember him bragging about how he made the, like our music teacher cry and then quit his job. And I remember that. And this, when we were like 9th grade, he was bragging about it. He bragged about it all the time. But like, I remember we had this like, music teacher who was like, he was new, and he was like, maybe he was gay, I don't know, but he was like really like, he was like, yay, we're gonna do music, we're gonna do this, I'm so excited, let's go. And then the kids would like not be paying attention. He'd be like, wait, you should pay attention to me, why are you doing it? And he like started crying one day. He's like, you just don't listen to me. You know, I was like the coolest kid ever. I always listened to the teacher and want to do exactly what the teacher said. But there were other kids who were just like nasty, and they'd be like, "What? Why do we want to listen to that silly song? You know? Oh, what? Now you're crying? You know, just like assholes." But I wasn't one of those kids. I kind of felt sorry for the guy. But anyways, yeah. But anyways, I had like junior high with him and high school with him and everything. And, yeah, he did it in 84 and didn't come back, and neither did that other kid. But the kid who won, like, it was so much fun because we would, like, you just ride as hard as you can from the beginning, and then, you know, there's always kids in front of you and behind you, and you try to catch the kid in front of you, and then you would be in this little group of, like, 3 or 4, you know, and then try to draft off of each other, and then, like, try and ride away from them, and you know, get over the hill, and I'd be like better on the hills because I was lighter, but then the other kids would like catch me on the downhill, and it was just really fun, man. And you know, everybody cheering, and then there's all these other age groups, and then you know, then you have like the girls categories, and it was just like this huge event. It was really fun, you know. And then in 4th grade, or in 1984, also that was the year that was like a big year for sports in America, because that was the year that we had the 84 Olympics, Summer Olympics. And we hosted the 84 Winter Olympics. And we won like every freaking gold medal in the Summer Olympics and in the Winter Olympics. Like we won everything. We won, like in the Winter Olympics, we won men's downhill, Bill Johnson, men's slalom with Phil Mayer, and men's like giant slalom with like Steve Mayer, his twin brother. You know, Scott Hamilton won the freaking figure skating. And I think like, didn't we win hockey? I mean, we won like everything. And then in the Summer Olympics came around, and we won everything there too. And I followed the Summer and the Winter Olympics, but I remember the Summer Olympics happened after the Coors Classic. And for some reason, the Coors Classic happened every year, but I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't know what it was until 1984, because that's when I was bike racing, and it happened after the Red Zinger. So I did the Red Zinger. I got all excited about bike racing after the Red Zinger. Oh yeah, and like the kid who won the Red Zinger, Andy Hooker, man, he like won every stage. He was this like blonde kid, and he won every stage in a solo breakaway. I guess he'd be like with the pack, and then he'd like break away, and then there was the other kid, Peter Lynch, who got 2nd, and then Travis Rosen got 3rd, and I think like Luke Miller was 4th. I remember the first time I saw Luke Miller, I thought he was a girl, because he had like hair down to his butt, and he was really skinny. It was at like something where you had to show up before the race, and like, so they make sure that you know how to ride a bike, you know, so you're not going to crash. And he showed up there, and I thought he was a girl. And then I saw him line up against me, and I was like, oh shit, it's that kid. Oh my God, it's a boy. but yeah. And, so I was like, fuck yeah, next year I'm going to win this. I want to be like Andy Hooker. I want to fucking kick ass next year and train my ass off. So I got all into biking, and then they had the Coors Classic. which was like the biggest stage race in all of America, and like a lot of the stages were right in Boulder. You had a criterium in North Boulder Park that had like hundreds of thousands of spectators watching it. And the Coors pack was huge, and they went so fast. And I remember we saw the prologue time trial of the '84 Coors Classic, which was from Chautauqua Park, and it went up Flagstaff Mountain, and it was only like a couple blocks up from where my house was. So we went up there and we watched it, and there was the announcer there and all the excitement. And you saw the guys shoot off the starting block, and somebody was like, yeah, and look, this guy, the German guy or whatever, he's got a $2,000 bike. Isn't that amazing? People were like, whoa, $2,000 bike, wow. And somebody was like, and it's Alexi Graywall. I guess he was like a big star then, because they were like, here goes Alexi Graywall. That was like one of the first names I remember. And then it was like, and Ron Kiefel, and like Ron Kiefel won the prologue. Yeah, and so we watched the Coors, and like Alexi Graywall was winning the Coors. And but then he got kicked out because he had like asthma medication or something that had some kind of like a stimulant in it, and they said it was drugs. So they kicked him out of the Coors. So the guy who was second ended up winning the Coors, who was Doug Shapiro, who was another American. And yeah, and I remember they like, Alexi Graywall was all bummed because he wasn't going to be able to race the Olympics, but then they let him race it in like the last minute. And yeah, I remember watching the Olympics on TV, and then Alexi Graywall won the Olympics. He outsprinted like Steve Bauer, who was supposed to be like the best sprinter in the pack, along with Davis Finney. And Davis Finney, I think, won the North Boulder Mall Criterium. Those were like the names that I remember. And then like, yeah, Ron Kiefel. And then Roy Nickman was a big deal back then, because he was like this 18-year-old kid who was like racing with the big guys and like keeping up with them and stuff. And he was supposed to be like the next like badass. And then we watched the Tour de France. That was the year I became acquainted with what the Tour de France was. And the guy who won that year was like this blonde dude, Laurent Fignon. And my dad was like, yeah. And so my parents were starting to get into it too, like become fans. And my dad's like, yeah, Bernard Hinault, man, he's the baddest ass. Won it like 4 times. And I was like, oh yeah. And I thought Bernard Hinault was Laurent Fignon, because Laurent Fignon won it that year. But then the next year I realized that Bernard Hinault was this other dude. But like my parents, they'd drive us up to like watch the Coors stages up in like Vail and like, all the other stages around. So, like the Morgul Bismarck we watch and stuff, and which was right outside of Boulder. So it was fun. And so then after 5th grade, I went to 5th grade at Waldorf, the private school, and I rode my bike. And okay, so then I had a new bike. I didn't have that push anymore. I got a top-of-the-line bike the next year. It was like this, top-of-the-line steel frame, like, what was it called? It was the Schwinn Peloton, and it had like, it had shifters on the bottom, and it was basically the best. It was like a badass bike. And I bought it with my own money. It was like $600, and I bought it because I was like mowing lawns from all the neighborhood houses, while I was in 4th grade. And maybe the beginning of 5th grade, and I bought it all with my own money. And I rode my bike to school every day, Waldorf, which was like not close to our house. It was like kind of on the other side of town. It was like it was on Foothills Parkway and Baseline, and my house was on Baseline and Broadway. So it was like a few miles away. And then I'd be at class, and then I brought my bike shorts with me, and then after class, I'd put my clothes pants, like pack them in like this bag under my seat, and then I'd do 2 laps at the Morgul Bismarck and then go home. Like riding as hard as I could. And so that was 37 miles that I'd ride a day, because it was 13 miles a lap around Morgul Bismarck, and then, so that's 26 miles. And then, so yeah, it was like 5.5 miles to school or something, and then I'd have to ride home from the end of Morgul Bismarck. So, but I did that every single day. Like I pretty much 6 days a week, like every day after school, sometimes I'd miss, but pretty much every day I did that. So I was riding like 210 miles every single week when I was 11. which is probably more riding than any of the other kids my age were doing. And I did like a training ride. At least I remember one training ride I did with my teammate from the year before, Chad, I think his name was. And he was going to race it the next year, but in the age group above. And I think he got 6th overall. But he went on a ride with me, and his mom actually chaperoned him. He rode to my house, but his mother came with him in the car because I guess she wanted to make it safe or something. But we did a lap in the Morro Bismarck, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to win. He's like, no, you're not. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, there's kids who beat you last year who were 10 years old. And I was like, really? I was like, I don't know any of them. He's like, yeah, dude. I was like, oh, well, anyways, I'm going to kick ass. He's like, cool, man. So, yeah, we did that. And then the 85 Red Zinger came around. Only this year we had even more races. We had like 2 warm-up races. There was one in Fort Collins and one in Denver. And the one in Fort Collins was a 3-stage race. It was a time trial and then a road race and then a criterium, and then Denver was like the same thing. And I think the one in Fort Collins was first. And like the father of one of the kids who raced, who was in my age group, Eric Owen, his dad Fred Owen was the director of that one. And then Beeler, I think the father of some kid named Jeff Beeler, who was actually like a year or 2 older than me racing. His dad, like Greg Beeler or something, was the director of the one in Denver. And so, yeah, we did the time trial, and I got like 5th or something. And then we did a road race, and I remember Eric Owen was one of my teammates. And I remember going to Eric Owen. I'm like, yeah, dude, we're going to do a breakaway around this corner right before the finish. He's like, okay. But yeah, we do the road race, and like I sprinted. There was a preem, and I sprinted ahead really fast, like before anybody else sprinted. And because I started the sprint really early, and some kid said to some other kid, like, watch out, like, this kid's attacking. Anyways, because I sprinted first, I won the preem, and I won some like handlebar tape. But then like when the attack happened, pretty much about where I predicted, I wasn't the one doing the attack, and I couldn't hang on, and so I ended up getting like 5th. I was 4th overall. And then there was this other kid with glasses. I think it was Jonathan Murley. But he was 5th, and we were in the criterium, and I got dropped from the main group of like 3 kids. And then there was me, and then behind me was him, and for some stupid-ass fucking reason, I stopped. I actually stopped and put my foot down, waited for him to catch me so that we could work together and catch the other guys in front. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. We didn't catch the guys in front, and then he out-sprinted me. And then he ended up beating me overall because of that. So I was like, I am the biggest moron. I could have just kept riding, and I would have beaten that motherfucker. But anyways, then the Red Zinger happened. Oh, and then the Denver race happened. And some kid named Mike Constantino won that. And then the Boulder race happened, and we had this time trial from the hill up to Chautauqua. And I rode that one. That was like perfectly suited to me because I was like a really little kid, tiny little kid. I was like 80 pounds or something, or less. I mean, I was tiny. So I just hammered my brains out like harder than I'd ever ridden in my entire life because I knew I was strong, and that just kind of gave me extra motivation to hammer. And I ended up getting 3rd. But this other kid won who hadn't shown up for the first races, for the Fort Collins race or the Denver race, Chris Wary. He beat me by 6 seconds, and I think Mike Constantino got 2nd. He beat me by 3 seconds, and then I beat all the other kids. And then we had this other race like right around where Waldorf was, right around our school criterium, and I got beat on that one. I think I got dropped from the pack. And then the 3rd race was Boulder Mall, but I was still 3rd place overall for some reason. But then I got dropped from the pack in that criterium, so then I fell back to 8th, and that's where I stayed for the rest of the race. Because like I just couldn't, when there was a speed surge, I just couldn't go. I was too little. Kids would just sprint ahead, and then I was dropped, and I was all by myself. But I managed to stay with a lead pack on the Longmont race. Oh my God, we're out of time again? Jesus Christ.